Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for joining our diagnostic training session today. Now, if you have any questions throughout the session, if you're watching on Zoom, just use the little Q&A button, top or the bottom of the screen, wherever your Zoom controls are, you should find that. Click on that, type in your question, hit submit, and I'll get to those at the end of the session. If you're watching on YouTube, just feel free to leave a comment wherever it happens to be, wherever the live chat happens to be on your screen there. So my name is Jason Gabrinas. I'm one of Snap-on's National Diagnostic Technical Trainers. Been in the training department. I'm starting my 10th year in training, traveling around North America, helping techs and shop owners get the most out of their diagnostic equipment. Before I did that, it was a couple of years as a diagnostic sales rep with Snap-on. Had about 30 different Snap-on franchisees I worked with, as well as the shops that they serviced, in order to help everyone get the most out of their diagnostic. And before that, it was 8 years at Subaru. So worked at a dealership, and over time, I guess, just became the default diag guy in the shop. So always ended up with the drivability problems, the intermittent problems, the weird wiring problems that would show up. And that's really where I cut my diagnostic teeth, was trying to figure out all those weird head scratcher type cars that would come into my bag. Then before that, a bunch of other miscellaneous wrenching jobs. Been a little over 25 years under hood experience for me. So our topic today is after the repair, coding replacement parts. So after the repair, especially nowadays on a large number of modern vehicles, I won't say all of them, but I would say a good majority of modern vehicles, when you do a repair, when you replace a component, often something needs to be done to finish the job, be it a reset, a relearn, coding, which we're going to talk about tonight, programming, or flashing. Now, the other thing with these different terms is I see them used interchangeably throughout the industry, and even the manufacturers can't necessarily keep them straight either. So sometimes it can be a little confusing as to, what's going on here. Is it a reset, a relearn, or what have you? So coding, by definition, is what we're going to talk about today. Now, coding is used to teach the ECM parameters by using a code number. Like if you saw that pre-roll video there at the beginning, you may have to type in a code number. So for example, fuel injector code. There's another example that Chrysler, Fiat, Dodge, Stellantis, whatever you want to call it nowadays, uses this other function called proxy alignment, which they consider coding as well, because it's using a code and sharing that code around between different modules. The body control module stores and compares vehicle configuration data with the instrument cluster as well as with other electronic control units in the vehicle. This process is referred to as programming of configuration of systems integrated, which stands for Proxy, P-R-O-C-S-I, also known as Proxy, P-R-O-X-I. If configuration mismatch is detected, the BCM sets a code. A configuration mismatch code will require the performance of a restore BCM proxy configuration routine or a proxy configuration alignment routine using a scan tool. All right, so the instrument cluster circuit operates on battery current received through the battery, non-switched fuse. This arrangement allows the instrument cluster to maintain functional regardless of the status of the ignition switch. Instrument cluster circuitry is grounded through the ground circuit and take the instrument panel wiring harness. Hardwired circuits between the components may be diagnosed using conventional diagnostics using procedures for appropriate wiring information. So that's just talking about diagnosing an instrument cluster issue. But when you replace a module on one of these vehicles, and sometimes just as a matter of course through doing a repair, you may need to do this proxy alignment. So if we go into the scan tool, we can see it's a 2013 Fiat 500. If we look down here at the bottom, we have proxy alignment right there. It's actually its own separate entry under body controls. We can perform the procedure or we can just stop. So if we go and perform the procedure, says this procedure is used to display the proxy configuration status of the entire vehicle and copy the proxy configuration data into any required ECUs. Continue to display the current vehicle status. We'll hit continue. And then in this case, it says that the instrument panel cluster and the radio, it's unknown, but the tire pressure monitor and the CTM have been configured already. So in that case, we need to continue and do the process. So it's going to count us down about 15 seconds or so. To complete the process, turn the ignition off, wait for the displayed countdown timer to finish. So you go through the process and then it says it's complete. It's a simple, kind of like a copy and paste function that it does automatically within the network. So if it sees that something is off, you can easily kind of recode that module to do it. You just hit continue and we're done. So that's just one example, and that's just kind of a procedure for multiple modules on a network. What else in a vehicle needs coding? There are some common components that require coding. Not everything needs coding. In my mind, looking through this, I was hard pressed to find, more than maybe half a dozen different components that actually need coding. Now, multiple vehicles may have the same component that would need coding. The most common one that I found would be the fuel injector. Fuel injector is very common for coding. And oftentimes it's to calculate the flow rate, to tell the computer what the flow rate needs to be for this particular injector, because every injector is going to be built a little bit different. Every injector is going to be built to flow a little bit different. So I need to tell the computer, hey, this one flows at XYZ rate versus the one that may have been in there before flows at ZYX rate. So you need to go and program that in. That's very common, especially on direct injection and diesel vehicles, direct injection, mostly on diesel vehicles too. But very, very common out there for injectors. If I do a fuel injector nowadays, more than likely, I'm probably going to have to code. Same thing with batteries. So very often, especially in the European cars, so BMWs, Minis, Audis, and Volkswagens, they need a coding of the battery. And the reason that we would need to code a battery would be so that the alternator, because a lot of these vehicles nowadays have variable alternators that'll charge more or less depending on the wear of the battery or the state of charge of the battery and so on. So it will learn that as they learn that it does. And if I need to put a new battery in, we don't want to overcharge that new battery. So we would go in and we would just simply code it. I'm going to show you a few examples here throughout the presentation and live on the tools, a couple examples we have as well. And then also headlights. On some vehicles, the headlight needs to be coded in. I know Mercedes for sure. You have to, and some vehicles, even the turn signal needs to be coded in too. I've seen that on a BMW before. But you need to code it in. A couple reasons on some vehicles, they won't be the right color if you don't code it in properly. So you have to do that. Otherwise, it just might not work properly, might not work at all until you go and code that light to the vehicle. Now, with these LED lights that we have nowadays, you can't just change the bulb because there's no bulb to change. Oftentimes, you're changing the whole assembly in that case, but it does need to, once again, be recoded to the vehicle so all the computers can run the LEDs the way they're supposed to be run. So as I said, the most common one going to be the fuel injector. So in this case, I got a 21 F350 here. And you can see we have, we're in our, resets and relearns. So we have fuel injector correction factor right here listed. Go in there. And in this case, it's going to use a 10-digit code on top of the injector to program that injector to the vehicle. Do not confuse characters, for example, 8 and B, D and 0 when reading off the injector. Through there. On the next screen, record the current IQA code, so that's injector quantity adjustment codes for your record. And select the injector to be programmed. So I continue. It's going to list out all the injectors on the vehicle, and here's what the current codes are. You could write those down, of course, but in my mind, I thought about this last time I did this class was, why not just take a screenshot? Hit the little S button on the tool. It's going to take a screenshot of the codes that are there. You will have it A as a reference in the vehicle record. You can just go refer back to that. And B, it'll upload to Snap-on Cloud so that you can reference it there if you needed to do that as well. But you would simply, if you wanted to change it, you'd hit edit. And then it's just to type in the new number, whatever it happens to be. A little keyboard will pop up if you don't have the wireless keyboard on the workstation. If it's just a non-Windows based tool, the keyboard will pop up as well. So any of the tools, the keyboard will pop up. Once you're done, hit OK. And that's going to say, well, here's the old ID, here's the new ID, hit a program. Now, here's where that confusion comes in again, right? Remember how I said coding or programming? Well, there we go. So I'm typing in a code, but then I also need to hit program on the vehicle in order to make it happen. So that's where some of that confusion in terms. Another example, like I said, battery. So this is on a 2016 Audi S5. And you can see I have a couple different options. I have a coding and configuration function. I have a battery parameterization when battery replaced. So go to coding and configuration. You can read the current code. There's a configuration list available, and there's a program and new code. So if we wanted to program a new code in the battery comes with a serial number. It's going to say, please write down the current code before you program a new code. This enables you to re-enter it if desired at a later stage. So if I need to swap the battery back for some reason, or something of that nature, once again, screenshot is going to be your friend there. Continue. There's the code. You just go in there and edit it if you needed to. And then once you're done, you can just hit program once again, and it would program. Battery parameterization, however, is going to be a little bit different. So this is going to do the following steps: parameterization of battery regulation. So in this case, I can specify what kind of battery it has in there. Once again, for that alternator, the charging system, that's variable. So we can see amp hours. We can change that, whatever the serial numbers of the batteries are. Once you're done with that, once again, program, hit the program button on top, and then you're done. And that brings me to lighting. So in this case, we got a 19 Mercedes. We got enter manufacturing date. We got coding, and we got restore headlight LED coding. That's in case we mess it up one time, I guess. We can go in and restore it. Coding a new headlamp. This function will code in a new headlamp to the headlamp control module or actuation module or multi-beam module, depending on what we have. Please note that only headlights with 1 or 2 data matrix codes are supported currently. If you have more than 2 data matrix code in your headlamp, then this will not work. So just be aware if you got more than that. That's not what this is for. We continue. Original coding will be stored automatically. That way I can put it back if I need to. You'll be able to restore the controller to its original state so you wish to do so. And then it would continue through that process. With the simulator, I can't necessarily go all the way through it sometimes, but let's show you some real world examples on a vehicle. Okay, so vehicle history. I'm just going to go in here and pull up. My first one's going to be BMW. So in this case, we got a 2012 BMW 3 Series, and we're going to go into the scan tool. And we're going to look at coding the battery. So in this case, we would go into the engine module in the simulator. You see I got codes, data, functional tests, right? So it would be under functional tests, of course. And if it's going to be any of these coding functions, programming functions, things of that nature, it's going to be under a special function. And you see I have a few options here. Oil level measurement. That one always blew my mind when the first time somebody told me about that. Oh, by the way, some of these vehicles don't have dipsticks, and you need to go and actually measure the oil out. It's kind of wild to me, but I digress. That's not what we're talking about. Battery replacement, change battery type. So if we go into battery replacement, we want to register a new battery or display the history there. So we can hit register new battery. And once again, it's going to reiterate, why do I need to do this? So for correct charging operation, if the new battery is a different type or size from the previous one, it must be written in the vehicle order. This can be done by choosing the change battery type function in the special functions menu. See display history for current battery capacity and type. AGM batteries are recognizable by their black housing. Lead acid batteries are recognizable by their white housing. Continue, and that's for factory batteries, of course. The battery replacement is programmed in the next step. It cannot be canceled after starting. So you continue, and that just resets. It resets them. That's just replacing the battery like for like. So if I have the same battery in the car and I'm replacing it with the same thing, that's what I would use. If I needed to change the type of battery, I can go in here, and it says before starting the test, check, make sure there are no fault codes present. Make sure the key is on, engine off with ignition on. You can also check whether the ignition on and checking the following modules. And continue. In the next menu, you'll see a current battery size registered. To change battery, simply select the battery selection and pick the new battery from the dropdown. Pressing OK will then write the new vehicle order for the new battery. Note, BMW recommends all modules be updated to the most current programming version for accurate battery change. So that's a whole other thing. That's a whole other thing. So you see we have a 46 amp hour lead acid battery in there. I can hit edit. And you see I give an option of 46, 55, 70, 80, 90, and 110 amp hours. And then for AGM batteries, I have 40, 60, 70, and 80. So let's just say I wanted to put an 80 amp hour AGM battery in there. I'd select that. And then behind my head here, we have program. We hit that. and then you'll see that it's set. We hit program again, and it says you're about to code the vehicle order. Make sure all accessories off, not activated during coding. Make sure the voltage is between 12 and 15 volts, steady with key on and off. Attach a battery maintainer or programming charger. This is like, they're serious about this. Failure to properly prepare for coding can result in catastrophic problem. Make sure that you follow the instructions. All right, so hit initiate. Battery voltage cannot be detected, and that's because I'm not hooked up to a car. But it would just go through and it would write the vehicle order. So once again, if I don't have the proper battery voltage, it's not going to let me do it. So in this case, we're not hooked up to a car, so we'll just abort. And then we have also, I want to note in here, we have the battery stuff we're talking about, but we also have injector coding in here as well. So very similar to diesels or whatever, many vehicles now you need to do that coding. So was there new engine ECU installed? No. When injector coding is complete, there may be slight discrepancy between codes read and codes written. It's not an error due to conversions taking place in the scan tool. Good to know. And then you see I got my injectors. I can simply hit edit. I can go in there and edit it. Hit OK. There's the old one. There's the new one. Hit program. And then it's done, and that's your code. So we're done there. We're done. Easy enough. You just need to know that this is something that you need to do in order to make it work. Next one, we'll go into this Mercedes. And we'll look at the lights. So to go to lights, we need to come down here, down to lighting and control. So we have left headlamp and right headlamp. Headlamp. Let's see here. Control module, actuation module, and LED matrix module. So if we go into the headlamp control module, say I'm in a simulator, we're just going to pick the first one there. Codes data functional test once again. And then once again, special functions is where that's going to be. We have resetting of operating hours, and we have adaptation. We go to adaptations, we can enter the manufacturing date, we can code a new headlamp, or it can restore coding from before. So we'll go to coding new headlamp. Function will code in a new headlamp to the headlamp control module, actuation module, multi-beam, 2 data matrix codes. We saw that earlier. Continue. It already automatically stores the original coding in case something goes wrong. Hit continue. And then, of course, I'm not hooked up to a car, so something goes wrong. But in that case, I can go back to adaptation, restore my coding. So is this a restore to the headlamp with the previous coding values prior to LED headlamp coding? Previously performed the coding, original file will be stored with the date and time. Perform this multiple times and multiple files will be stored. Select the appropriate file. So continue. And then you can see I have some from doing this class before. This one just happened right now, so I can click on that. And then it'll simply restore it from there. And we're good. Let's see, do we have injectors on this one too? Also, remember on Mercedes, we need to stop communication before we disconnect from the vehicle. Otherwise, we can have problems there as well. But let's go into engine and see if we have. Okay. So we have correction of programming ignition, correction of programming fuel quantity, injector, injection quantity adjustment. So there's that injector quantity adjustment again. We can go in there. And replacing injector is essential to save the QR code of the new injector in the engine control unit. This ensures that the necessary correction parameters for the injector will be recorded in the engine control unit. Correction parameters enable the engine control unit to meter the injection quantity precisely. Continue. QR code of the injector consists of a 5-character number. It's not located on the body of the injector. Okay, so there's my current status. I can go in here and I can go 5, hit OK. There's the old one. There's the new one. Hit program. Once again, there's that confusion between coding and programming. Continue, and there it is right there. Now, this is also important to know. I keep bringing up the injectors, but it is very important. And as you can see, multiple vehicles have the same type of idea. It's just, it might be an 8-digit code or a 6-digit code or a 5-digit code, or it's somewhere on the injector. But think about how you may have diagnosed problems running in the past. Maybe if I think it's a bad injector, instead of testing it, which happens. Maybe we just swap them cylinder to cylinder and see if the problem falls, right? I've seen it happen many times. In this case, on a vehicle that would have that with the coating, if you don't change the coating over, so let's say I swapped injector 1 and 2, I would have to flip-flop those codes. Otherwise, the injector is not going to flow properly, and I could be chasing my tail on a problem that I introduced myself by putting in a different injector and swapping it and not coding it to the vehicle and telling the vehicle where it was, if that makes sense. So if one's flowing differently than the other, and that's not actually causing the drivability problem, you could introduce a drivability problem by not coding the injector properly. So just be aware that that could happen. That's why I just want to mention that. And then same with the battery too. I have a charging system problem. Last thing I want to do is the F350. So you can go under scanner. Now, if you have certain of our tools, like any of the intelligent diagnostics tools or on the Veris Edge, as long as you have current software, you will have access to the service resets and relearns menu. Now, you could go into the individual modules, yes, and you could find them in there, but this makes it easier to do because it lists it out by job. So I can just look in here and say, okay, what did I do? Did I replace the fuel injector? All right, let's look at that. And then if I go to functional resets, what either functional tests, coding, resets, relearns, or bidirectional controls apply to a fuel injector replacement? So in this case, we have our injector correction factor. Also, what if I wanted to look up some repair information? So if you're in the US or Canada, and you have shop key, you can go in here. Otherwise, over in the UK, you have Snap-on repair information. But if we go in there, load the vehicle up, it's going to give us the information we need. Say we replace the fuel injector. Notice how it brought the vehicle through and it brought the problem through. So fuel injector. Hit replace. Let's just say it's 4-door. Then I can come down here and go to remove and replace, and then it will tell me left side or right side if I wanted to install it, what I need to do. So we need to make sure the seat is in there. On fuel injector, there's a couple O-rings we need. Right here, note the PCM is programmed with an IQA code for each fuel injector. The new fuel injector is installed. Record the new fuel injector IQA code and cylinder location. So we need to worry about that. Torque it down properly. Here's what you would use if you're at the dealership. There's a serial number to change the IQA code. You can do that, and it tells what cylinder was what. PCM must be programmed with the proper fuel injector IQA codes. Once again, that's coding, not programming. Using a scan tool, follow the on-screen instructions to program the PCM with appropriate IQA code. Fuel injector that was replaced. It also says we want to perform the minimum fuel mass adaptation for all cylinders. And then, let's see, fuel injector adaptive reset must be performed as well. So there's a couple different things we need to do. Make sure we do the IQA codes too. We can flip over back to scanner. There's my IQA. Go in there. Use the 10-digit code once again. Don't confuse it. Here's the new ones, or here's what's in there already. Oh, by the way, that's a security link session. So I have to be hooked up to Wi-Fi to log into this and to make sure my tools register. Because this is sending a command to the computer, and they want to lock those behind security. So that's one of those newer security link capable Fords that you would use that for. So once again, I can go in there, I can edit it however I want, hit OK. Then it'll go in there, hit program, and it codes it. It's super simple to do. You saw the video at the beginning. I did that live on a real live car, and it didn't take very long at all. It just took the amount of time to type it in. So easy enough to do, but if you do not do it, it can cause drivability problems with the injector. It can cause overcharging problems, let's say the battery. It can charge, a whole litany of different problems can be caused by not doing this coding after the fact, after I'm done. Now, as I said, this is a little bit of a shorter class this week because really it's injectors, batteries, headlights. Other stuff, when you get into resets, relearns, sometimes it's just clicking a button on the screen, it resets it. sometime a relearn. Maybe it's like a throttle body, it needs to do a full sweep in order to find where 0 is. And then other times with programming, it's just from a drop-down menu. I'm going to go into my body control module and program it to do whatever I need. I press the button twice and it unlocks or whatever. That's usually from a drop-down menu, so that'd be more of a programming. So with coding, the definition of coding is typing in a code in order to set something up inside the system, inside the module on the vehicle, to tell it that you've changed it, to tell it here's what the new one's set up to do. So hopefully we picked up a few little tips and tricks here. Maybe you can even take them in the shop tomorrow. Never know. Let's talk about next week. Next week, we are going to do part 3 of our guided component testing series. So we talk all about guided component tests and how we can use them and how they can help me as a technician test things easier, faster, all the information right there. But there have been some new enhancements to the guided component test that I also want to make sure you're aware of. So make sure you can join me next week, same time and same place, 6 and 9 Eastern. If you want to join me on Zoom, go to snapon.com/OT, register and hold your spot there. Otherwise, the 6 p.m. Eastern class goes live to YouTube. So it's youtube.com/Snap-on Diagnostics. If you are watching on YouTube, please, if you would, just hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, thumbs up, all those good things. It really helps the algorithm with that type of thing. So please, if you could, do that. And then also the 9 p.m. Eastern class goes to my Facebook page. So it's facebook.com/SnapOnJason, all one word, no dash in the Snap-on. If you want to check me out over there. 62 different episodes. So we've been doing this for a few years now, and we're up to 62 different topics that we've done these classes on, with many more to come, I'm sure. But if you want to see any of the past prior 62 classes we've done, anything from ADAS down to 48-volt mild hybrid systems, you can go check those out for free on our YouTube channel. Once again, youtube.com/Snap-on Diagnostics, all one word. Okay, let's get to questions. If you are and you join late on Zoom and you do have a question, just go to the little Q&A box, top or bottom of the screen, type that in. On YouTube, I see I got a few things in there. We'll get to those in a second. I do want to make sure I mention my buddy Keith before I go. Keith also does free diagnostic training, but his is going to be based on the tool. So on Wednesday nights, he does Zeus. And then on Thursday nights, he does a combo Apollo Triton class. The first hour on either of the classes is going to be, let's make sure your Wi-Fi is set up. As we can see, that's critical on, especially like those Fords. Make sure your Wi-Fi is set up. We're going to talk security link. We're going to talk through, setting up a free Snap-on Cloud account, and those are all kind of related. After that, he's going to walk you through real-world scenarios, code to completion on Fast Track Intelligent Diagnostics. How does it help me as a technician go and actually, how does it help me diagnose cars quicker and easier than ever before? Then he takes about a 5-minute break in between. That's the first hour. Second hour is going to be all on guided component test, scope, meter, all the different scope and meter functions on the tools. So definitely check that out. One session a night, 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central, Wednesday and Thursday. They have Zoom only, so you go to snapon.com/OT to sign up and hold your seat for that. All right, let's get back to questions. So on Zoom, okay, so a couple questions, and I think they're probably related from 2 different people. So on Zoom, Joe asks, how would you approach a like kind of quality salvage engine replacement? So in this case, if it was something that needed those injectors coated, I guess there's 2 ways to do it. When I've replaced engines with like junkyard engines, sometimes we just take the whole intake manifold and flip it over because it's a lot easier that way, and just use the mechanical part is what all we're really concerned about in that case. So in that case, the injectors would go with it. Otherwise, you would need to find the injector codes on the individual injectors and then code them into the ECM if it didn't come with a new ECM. If you're just swapping engine to engine, plug right in, plug and play, then you would need to actually code those injectors in. Otherwise, it might not run right out of the gate. And then maybe you think, oh man, they gave us a crap engine that's not working, and it might not be the case. It might just be it needs those injectors coded. So yeah, that's a good thing to bring up because I didn't really think about that or consider that. So yeah, that's how I would approach it. Either just swap the intake from the old one onto the new one if I can. Otherwise, you got to find the codes on the injectors. Now that brings me to this next question from Dustin. Where do you find the new codes when replacing the injector? So it depends on the manufacturer, but from what I've been seeing, or what I have seen, Ford, it's on the top, and then it also comes with a little tag in the box. I think even on the box, if I recall. I don't quite remember. It's been a while since I did that video, but I think on the box it's even there. On Mercedes, they said it was a QR code on the side, and that should be printed on the side. Most of them are going to be screen printed on the side in some way, or it's going to be on the top, embossed into the top. Screen printing, diesel fuel sometimes doesn't always work very well. So you might run into a little bit of trouble there, but as a brand new one, it would come with the brand new. But if I'm swapping them, side to side, it could be an issue trying to read it. But yeah, on a brand new one, it should come with it, with the box, the packaging. It should be easy enough to see barcode on the top sometimes. All right, let's go over to YouTube. YouTube, Nung Schidler, good evening. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. Quinn, welcome. Glad to see you again. Peter, hello. Welcome. Quinn says, are there any security protocols on that coating? So as we saw, like, it depends on the vehicle, right? So on the examples that we use, the only one that was behind security as of now was that Ford. So on 18 and newer Fords, when it comes to that type of functionality, there is behind security. It is a security link function. Volkswagen and Audis, up until now, it's been all right. Sometimes there's like security codes that you do need to enter. I did see that I got a question on VW Audi. But for the most part, as of right now, they're really not behind security. Except for that example that I gave you. Corvette Rick, hello from Alaska. Hey, Nick from UK, welcome. Thanks for joining, as always. Let's see, he's asking about the demo boards. There are no new demo boards. So the ESX 306 SC and SP, those are the current demo boards, and those are the ones we have. So one's for scanner and one is for scope, and I use them all the time. And as far as I know, there aren't even any new ones in the works. So because they just they do what they do. They're there and they do what they do, and they do a pretty good job of it. So no new ones as far as I know. Let's see. Richie says, can you explain Volkswagen security code procedures for the scanner? That is probably a different topic for a different time. There is a way, or a couple different ways. If you go through on our scan tool, you can do long coding and short coding of different components. But Volkswagen, Audi's kind of their whole separate beast. I could probably do a whole class just on that. So we don't really have a lot of time to talk about it today. But yes, there are provisions in the scan tool in order to do that. There's a long coding program and a short coding program in there as well. If you go in through expert mode, and then also outside of expert mode now, in the last, 5-6 years, we've been bringing things over from expert mode into the vehicle specific side of things too. So if you just ID a Volkswagen, it may, depending on the vehicle, depending on the control module, give you that option to go and do the security code procedures as well. I think that might be what you're talking about, Richie. Otherwise, there's also security link that's coming down the pike too. And that is not quite, Volkswagen doesn't have that available, but it will. Let's see. Nick says, thanks for the free training. You're very welcome. Anthony Nofi typing in a code for thanks for the presentation. Very good. Abel, thank you for joining us as always. And DJ, welcome. All hail thermal energy. Yes, you are a big fan of thermal, and so am I. Joe asks, aftermarket parts like headlamps, they would need coding as well. Yes. So anytime, if I normally would need coding, like for a brand new one, even a salvage part, like a headlamp, it would need to be coded to the vehicle unless the control module is replaced at the same time. Basically, what you're doing with the coding is you're telling the control module, here's how this particular one piece works. And every one piece is going to be a little bit different. So you got to tell it to do that, right? So you got to tell it to go in there and actually do the, here's how it works. It's kind of like the pairing, the mating of the two pieces. So yeah, definitely if it was a headlamp aftermarket. Now the headlamps, it's fairly recent that that's been a thing. So you may, if it's like a mid 20 teens, it might not need it. More than likely, it's going to just be like your newer ones, 18, 19, 20, whatever. Even though that's like a 4 or 5 year old car. Yeah, they're getting there, they're getting out there. So if you replace the whole assembly, yeah, you wouldn't need to code that. Same with the battery, same with the injector. If you need to do it with a new part, you need to do it with a used part as well. Also be aware that on some used parts, some vehicles don't like that anymore either. Like, for example, anything GM, the Global A, which is like, 2010 and newer, you can't swap modules on those things anymore. You're going to brick both modules. So we don't want to do that either. So you just got to be really careful. You want to read up on that. You got to read up on that and see what the manufacturer wants you to do and whether or not you even can. Richie says on YouTube, yeah, do a class on it, please. I'll do my research and see what I can do. Maybe later this year, older model Volkswagens. Phil, does it do online coding like some other scanners do? Yeah, it does not do online coding simply because the manufacturers don't necessarily allow that, I will say. And there are ways that some folks get around it, and that's not how we do things here. So take with that what you will. Let's see. Another question. All right. Copy that on Joe. Thank you very much. Thanks for joining as well. All right. So it looks like with that, we have closed out questions in all locations. So I'd like to say thank you very much. Thank you very much for taking a little bit of time out of your day to spend a little bit of time with me. Hopefully we learned a little bit more about coding, how coding works, and a couple of different intricacies in between those. Just remember, if it needs to be done when you replace the part, you want to make sure you do that. Otherwise, you could introduce some other problem that you weren't intending on introducing into the vehicle, and it'll just help overall, so you don't have to worry about chasing your tail on a problem that isn't really a problem. It just needs to get fixed with the programs. With that, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy your nights. Enjoy your weekend. Have a good night and take care.